Okay, so you sent over some really thought-provoking material. It all kind of centers around that feeling we all get, right? Hitting a wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in the drive for something, maybe something big, or maybe just getting through the day, it just starts to feel impossible.
Mm-hmm. And that little voice suggesting giving up gets pretty loud.
Exactly. That moment, the initial spark just seems to fizzle.
It's a really common experience.
Right. And look, we're not just planning to give you simple pep talks here. Your sources, they go deep. They really explore the science behind that spark, or maybe the lack of it.
Yeah, the mechanics underneath.
So our mission today is to really unpack this stuff, pull out the core insights, and hopefully hand you a practical toolkit. This is grounded in, psychology, neuroscience.
Right. Tools to understand why that drive fades, and crucially, how to build up that self-belief again.
Because this isn't just about, feeling good momentarily. It's about understanding the underlying mechanisms.
It really is. It's about genuinely amping up your own self-belief, but not with cliches. We're talking actionable strategies based on how our brains and bodies actually work.
And the material kicks off by giving us a pretty clear definition of confidence itself, which is helpful. It says, forget that image of someone, loud or boastful.
Yeah, that's not really it.
True confidence, according to these sources, is more like a realistic trust in your actual abilities.
And resilience, too, when things get tough.
Right. Resilience, and also this underlying sense of your own inherent worth.
Yeah.
It's more like quiet strength, isn't it? Not noisy ego.
Exactly. Competence and maybe calm, not arrogance. And the sources make this really useful distinction early on, too.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Between general self-confidence, that overall sense of I'm generally okay, and self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy, okay.
Which is your confidence in your ability to succeed at specific things, specific tasks.
Okay. That distinction is really key, isn't it? Because you could feel generally pretty good about life, but totally freeze up at the thought of, say, public speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you might be incredibly confident and skilled in one area, maybe coding or art, whatever.
Right.
But really struggle with self-belief in other parts of your life.
That makes total sense.
And the science is clear on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not some fixed trait you're just born with. It's dynamic.
It changes.
Yeah, it's influenced by your experiences, the feedback you get, even your biology.
Okay, which leads perfectly into this next bit the material covers. Before we even talk about building confidence, we need to get why that initial burst of motivation, that I can do this feeling at the start, why it so often just, fades.
Right. Think about starting a new project or a new habit. There's often that initial, rush.
Yeah, excitement.
That's often tied to dopamine.
Yeah.
The brain's reward chemical. Novelty itself is rewarding for the brain.
Oh, okay.
And just anticipating success can trigger a release so it feels exciting, almost effortless at first.
It feels easy, almost automatic. But the sources explain that initial dopamine hit, it's just not sustainable long term.
No, not really. Especially once the novelty wears off, which it always does.
Right.
And more importantly, once challenges pop up, and they always pop up,
Sure.
that's when it starts to feel like real effort. And that's when motivation can feel like it's just vanishing.
But it hasn't actually vanished.
Well, the feeling supporting it has changed. The initial easy buzz is gone.
And what happens when you hit those challenges? Especially if it happens again and again, the material talks about setbacks.
Oh, yeah, this is critical. If your efforts keep meeting failure, or if you just feel like nothing you do makes a difference, you can fall into what psychologists call learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness, okay.
It's this belief, basically, that you don't have control over the outcome. And that just crushes motivation and confidence.
It's like your brain actually learns that trying is pointless.
Precisely. And, everyday life doesn't exactly help.
Yeah.
Deadlines, money worries, maybe not getting support from people around you.
All that stuff piles on.
It amplifies that urge to just quit. Makes the effort feel heavier, makes the setback seem bigger.
So the big takeaway here seems to be that motivation isn't just some random feeling that comes and goes.
Right. It's more like a skill. Or maybe a muscle.
Oh, muscle, I like that.
It needs fuel, and it can definitely be drained by all these factors we just mentioned. So understanding what fuels it and what drains it, that's kind of the first step.
Okay, which then leads us perfectly into the science part. How do we actually build that muscle? The sources get into both the psychology and the biology.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Let's start with the psychology. They mention Albert Bandura.
Yes, Bandura, a giant in the field. His work on self-efficacy is just incredibly insightful.
Self-efficacy, again, the specific task confidence.
Exactly. And he identified 4 main sources, 4 things that build our belief that we can succeed at something specific. The first one, and probably the most powerful, is mastery experiences.
Mastery experiences. Okay, what's that mean in, like, plain English?
It's actually really simple, but profound. It just means successfully doing things.
Just doing them.
Yeah. Every time you try something and you actually achieve it, even if it's tiny, your brain logs it. It's like putting up a little mental flag that says, hey, you did that. You can do stuff.
So it's not about waiting for one massive success, but more about stacking up small wins.
Exactly that. The material really highlights that it's the accumulation that matters, that builds the track record.
Ah, a track record in your head.
Kind of. Each little success adds to this evidence folder your brain keeps. Basically saying, look, you've handled things like this before. You're competent. You can probably do this too. It gives you an internal reference point.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what's the second source Bandura identified?
That would be vicarious learning.
Vicarious, like learning through others.
Exactly. It's the power of observation. Seeing people who are like you succeed at something you're trying to do, or maybe something you want to do.
Ah, the classic, if they can do it, maybe I can do it feeling.
Precisely that. When you see role models who seem relatable, it makes your own goals feel more achievable, less like some abstract dream.
It provides proof it's possible.
It really does. Makes it feel more concrete. Okay, third source. Social persuasion.
Okay, this sounds like getting a good pep talk.
It is, basically. But it's specifically about genuine encouragement from people you respect.
Ah, the genuine part is key.
Totally. When someone whose opinion you value says, hey, I believe in you, or, you really have the skills for this, it can give you a serious boost, especially when your own self-doubt is screaming.
Yeah, I can see how that would land differently than just some random empty praise.
Absolutely. The sources emphasize it needs to feel sincere. It should acknowledge your actual effort or your skills, not just be a generic, you're awesome. That kind of specific, credible encouragement. Much more powerful.
Got it. Okay, and the last one, number 4.
Emotional and physiological states.
Meaning how you feel physically.
Yeah, how you feel in your body and mind. It significantly impacts your perceived self-efficacy in that moment.
Like feeling anxious versus feeling calm and energized.
Exactly. If you're feeling physically drained or stressed out or really anxious, sweaty palms, racing heart, your body's basically sending signals that get interpreted as warning. You can't handle this.
Okay.
But if you feel calm, energized, maybe even excited, your body's sending signals of readiness, of capability. Your physical state is red as part of your preparedness.
Wow. It's a really powerful reminder that your body isn't just carrying your brain around, it's actively involved in your confidence level.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And that links beautifully into the neuroscience and the biology stuff the material gets into. It's not just a feeling, it's actually wired into us.
Okay, this is where it gets super interesting for me. Where in the brain are we talking about?
Well, a key player is the prefrontal cortex, right behind your forehead. Think of it like the brain's CEO. The material mentions a study, I think it was 2016, showing this area is constantly crunching data, your past experiences, the current situation, to predict the likelihood of success.
So when you feel that surge of confidence, it's like the CEO analyzing the data and giving a calculated, yep, looks good.
That's a fantastic way to put it. Yeah, it's like a real-time assessment. You've got the resources for this. And then, of course, there's dopamine again.
Ah, dopamine, the happy juice or the reward chemical, right?
Exactly. It gets released when you succeed or even just when you think you're going to succeed. And that release reinforces the behaviors that led to the success or the anticipation.
Makes your brain want more.
Pretty much. Your brain goes, ooh, that felt good. Let's do that again. So it encourages you to repeat those successful actions.
Which connects perfectly back to those mastery experiences we talked about, small wins triggering that dopamine loop.
Totally connected. And interestingly, there was a 2020 study suggesting that people with higher baseline levels of dopamine might actually tend to feel more confident generally.
Wow, so it really reinforces that biological link.
It does.
Okay, so we've got the CEO predicting success and dopamine rewarding it. What about the part of the brain that makes us feel, well, unconfident? The worried part.
That often involves the amygdala. Think of it as the brain's alarm system or fear center.
The amygdala, okay.
When it's overactive, it can be hypersensitive to uncertainty or the possibility of failure.
And that's what triggers the stress response, like the racing heart.
Right. Those physical symptoms of anxiety we mentioned earlier, racing heart, tunnel vision, that kind of thing. An overactive amygdala can seriously undermine confidence by flooding your system with fear signals.
But the good news, the sources also talk about neuroplasticity, right? Yeah. The brain's ability to change.
Yes. This is the really empowering bit. Even if your amygdala is maybe a bit quick to sound the alarm, the brain can be rewired. It's not fixed. Through consistent practice facing challenges, reframing your thoughts, you can actually train your amygdala to become less reactive over time.
Like exercising a brain muscle.
It's literally like that. You're strengthening different pathways.
That's a really powerful idea. You can actually train your brain to be more confident. And then hormones get involved too.
Yeah, another layer to the biological soup. Testosterone often gets linked to assertiveness. And some research even suggests that acting confidently might create a kind of positive feedback loop, potentially influencing testosterone levels.
Is that like the whole power posing thing, standing up straight?
Exactly, that kind of idea. Embodying confidence might influence your internal state. And on the flip side, you have cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Right. And it's consistently shown to basically chip away at confidence.
Yeah.
High levels of cortisol just undermine your feeling of being capable and in control.
And didn't one study, maybe 2019, find that a balanced ratio between testosterone and cortisol was linked to higher confidence?
Exactly. So it's this really dynamic interplay. Brain regions talking to each other, neurotransmitters like dopamine, hormones like testosterone and cortisol. Confidence isn't just abstract. It has a real, tangible biological basis.
Okay, wow. So if it's this biological and psychological skill, something that can be built, why do so many people, even really successful people, struggle with it so much? The material dives into this confidence gap.
Right. And it points to both external and internal factors that can create or widen this gap. One huge area is our childhood experiences.
The feedback we got growing up has a really long shadow.
Absolutely crucial. The sources get specific about the type of praise even. Praising effort and the learning process, like saying, wow, you worked really hard to figure that problem out, that teaches kids their abilities can grow.
That's the growth mindset idea, right, from Carol Dweck.
Exactly, her work, as opposed to just saying, you're so smart.
Because that backfires.
It can. Praising innate talent, like you're just naturally gifted, can actually create a fear of failure. Because if you struggle or make a mistake, you might think it means you're not actually smart or talented after all. It ties your self-worth to performing flawlessly.
Which is impossible for anyone.
Precisely. And on the other hand, if you grew up with a lot of criticism or just a lack of positive reinforcement, that can lay down these really deep tracks of self-doubt that are hard to shake off later in life.
So that early environment literally helps wire those neural pathways for confidence or for doubt.
It really does. And it's not just childhood stuff. Societal factors play a big role too.
Like what?
Well, the material points to things like gender. There was a 2014 article mentioned that noted, on average, women tend to underestimate their abilities compared to men.
And that's not about actual ability, but perception.
Exactly. Perception shaped by societal expectations, biases, things like that.
Yeah.
And culture matters too. Some cultures place a really high value on humility.
Right.
So maybe overt displays of confidence or trying to stand out might be discouraged. That can subtly shape how comfortable people feel asserting their capability.
So it's not just all in your head. Your environment, past and present, plays a huge part.
A really big part. Then you've got internal patterns, like perfectionism.
The drive to be absolutely flawless. How does that hurt confidence? It seems like it would build it.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you set impossibly high standards for yourself, you're basically setting yourself up to constantly feel like you're falling short.
Always failing to meet the mark.
Exactly. A 2021 study linked perfectionism directly to lower self-confidence because you rarely get those crucial mastery experiences. You're always focused on the gap, the perceived failure to hit that unrealistic ideal.
You're stuck feeling inadequate.
Pretty much. And then finally, there's imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah. Feeling like a fraud, even when you have evidence you're successful.
It's incredibly common. First described way back in 1978, and it affects loads of people, even very high achievers. Your brain just struggles to internalize your successes.
Wow.
It really shows the power of our inner narrative, doesn't it? It can just override external proof.
It's like that old self-doubt from earlier experiences just becomes the loudest voice, no matter what you actually accomplish.
It can feel like that, yeah. So understanding all these factors helps explain why building confidence can be such a journey for so many of us.
Okay, which brings us finally to the most important part, the toolkit.
Yeah.
Based on all this science, all this understanding, what can we actually do about it?
Right. Let's get practical.
Yeah.
These strategies come directly from the science we've been talking about. The first one is start small and stack wins.
Okay, connecting right back to those mastery experiences and the dopamine loop.
Precisely. Set yourself really achievable micro goals, like write just 200 words or run for just 10 minutes. Make that one difficult phone call you've been putting off.
Tiny steps.
Tiny steps. Achieving these small things gives your brain concrete proof of capability, and it triggers that little dopamine reward, reinforcing the action.
So gradual progress is the name of the game, not trying to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Definitely. A 2017 study confirmed it. Gradual progress is way more effective for building momentum and belief than trying to tackle huge things all at once. It's about building that mental track record we talked about.
Okay, so what's an actionable step here?
The material suggests something simple. List maybe 3 small, achievable tasks you can realistically do today, and then do them. And actually notice the feeling of accomplishment, however small it seems.
Pay attention to the win.
Yeah. It sounds basic, but doing that consistently starts to rewire your brain to expect success, not failure.
I love that. Okay, tool number 2.
Reframe failure. This taps right into that growth mindset idea.
Seeing setbacks not as the end, but as learning opportunities.
Exactly that. Instead of thinking, I failed, I'm just not good enough, the reframe is, okay, that approach didn't work. What can I learn from this? How can I adjust?
Brings up Carol Dweck again.
Yep, her work is central here. Viewing failure as feedback, not as some final verdict on your abilities, it dramatically reduces that harsh self-criticism. And it builds resilience. A 2022 study backed this up. It really takes the sting out of failure.
It shifts the focus from just the outcome to the whole process of learning and adapting.
Yes. And an actionable step the sources suggest is, after you have a setback, actually write down one specific lesson you learned from it.
Okay.
And then write down one concrete step you can take forward based on that lesson.
Keeps you moving, keeps it constructive. Okay, next. Harnessing our bodies. That came up with Bandora.
Right, which gives us the tool. Harness your body. This includes ideas like Amy Cuddy's famous power posing.
Standing tall, hands on hips, that kind of expansive posture.
Exactly. The original idea was that these postures might actually influence your hormones, maybe boost testosterone, lower cortisol, though that specific hormone link is debated now.
Okay.
But crucially, a big 2023 meta-analysis found that simply standing more upright can increase people's self-reported feelings of confidence.
So even if the hormone mechanism isn't the main driver, just embodying a confident posture can actually make you feel more confident.
It seems so. It's like a physical cue you're sending back to your brain. Actionable tip. Before you walk into a challenge, a meeting, a presentation, whatever, try standing tall. Pull your shoulders back. Maybe take some deep breath for just 2 minutes. See how it shifts your internal state.
Worth a try. Okay, next tool in the kit.
Visualize success. This taps into activating those neural pathways we talked about earlier.
Like mental rehearsal.
Yes. When you vividly picture yourself achieving a goal, it actually activates similar areas in your brain, as if you were really doing it.
Wow.
A 2018 study showed that this kind of mental practice can genuinely boost your belief in your ability to perform the task. It makes the goal feel less intimidating, more tangible, and the steps to get there feel more familiar.
So it's not just wishful thinking, it's actually priming your brain.
That's a great way to put it. Actionable. Spend maybe 5 minutes really vividly visualizing success. And don't just picture the end result. Visualize the process too. See yourself taking the steps, maybe overcoming little hurdles along the way, feeling the positive emotions as you progress. Making detailed.
Got it. Okay, thinking about influences. Who you surround yourself with matters too.
Hugely. Which leads to the next tool. Curate your circle. Our social environment is incredibly powerful. Being around supportive people, people who genuinely believe in you, that energy is contagious.
Is that like that Framingham Heart study that showed behaviors and even moods can spread through social networks?
Exactly, that kind of effect. And a 2020 study specifically found that positive feedback from peers significantly boosts confidence. So find your tribe.
Your tribe.
Yeah, people who are maybe pursuing similar goals, people who lift you up, not those who tear you down or constantly criticize.
That external validation from trusted people and just the camaraderie can make a massive difference when you're struggling.
You really can. Actionable. When you're feeling low, actually reach out to someone you trust, someone who believes in you. Ask for their perspective or just some encouragement.
Good advice. And then there's that internal battle.
Yeah.
That negative voice in our heads.
Yes, the inner critic. The next tool is tame the inner critic, that internal narrative we talked about. First step is just becoming aware of it.
Noticing it.
Yeah, noticing it without automatically believing everything it says. Then you challenge its assumptions.
Like replacing the negative thought with a positive one.
It's a bit more than just positive affirmations, though those can help. It's more about countering the negative thought like, you're definitely going to fail, with actual evidence or more growth-oriented statement.
Like what?
Like, okay, I've overcome challenges before, or this is tough, but I can learn as I go. And the sources mentioned some interesting research from Ethan Kross about using third-person self-talk.
Talking to yourself using you.
Yeah, like saying, you've got this, your name, instead of I've got this. Apparently, that creates a bit of psychological distance, which can reduce stress and actually boost your resolves.
Huh. Like coaching yourself as you'd coach a friend.
It's exactly like that. Actionable tip. Create an evidence locker. Make a list of maybe 3 recent accomplishments, no matter how small they seem. Next time your inner critic starts yelling, pull out that list as counter-evidence.
I like that, an evidence locker. Okay, this next one feels really crucial. Rest. Don't quit.
Yes. This links right back to how our emotional and physiological states impact confidence. Sometimes that overwhelming urge to quit isn't really about the goal being wrong.
It's just burnout.
Exactly. It might just mean you're exhausted and need a break. Pushing relentlessly when you're running on empty is completely counterproductive for confidence.
Because being burnt out just makes you feel incapable.
Totally. So rest isn't weakness. The material frames it as a strategic necessity. You need it to rebuild the physical and mental resources that confidence actually relies on.
So schedule it in like you schedule work.
Yes. Integrate regular short breaks. Maybe use techniques like the Pomodoro method. And don't be afraid to take longer breaks, a day off, a weekend away, when you feel that deeper exhaustion setting in.
Step away to recharge.
Yeah, disconnecting allows you to recharge. And you often come back with a fresh perspective and renewed energy and capability.
Makes sense. Okay, and as you're doing all this work, applying these tools, it's important to actually track your progress.
So simple, but so often overlooked. It's incredibly easy to feel stuck or like you're not making any headway if you don't have some visible proof.
Because without seeing the progress, all the effort can feel kind of invisible or pointless.
Right. So whether you use a journal, a spreadsheet, an app, whatever works for you, track your actions. Track those small wins. Track the milestones you hit.
Why is seeing it so important?
Seeing that concrete evidence of how far you've actually come provides undeniable proof of your capability. It fuels motivation, makes the effort feel worthwhile, and it keeps you accountable to yourself.
It turns that abstract feeling of effort into tangible proof of movement.
Exactly. And finally, a really powerful tool, or maybe mindset shift, is accepting that it's okay to pivot.
Okay, this comes back to that urge to quit again. Sometimes that urge is actually telling you something important about the path you're on.
Yes. Sometimes the goal itself just isn't the right fit anymore. Your priorities change, your values evolve, life circumstances shift. Holding on to a goal that no longer genuinely resonates with you is incredibly demotivating.
So letting go of that goal or changing direction isn't failure in that case.
Not at all. The sources frame it as an act of self-awareness, even self-respect. It takes real courage and strength to acknowledge, you know what, this isn't right for me anymore, and then redirect your energy towards something that is.
It's not giving up. It's more like redirecting intelligently.
Exactly. It's choosing a path that honors who you are now, like leaving a job that's making you utterly miserable or moving on from a passion project that's genuinely faded. That's growth.
Yeah, absolutely. It frees up all that mental and emotional energy that was being drained by sticking with the wrong thing.
Precisely. Energy you can then invest in goals that actually excite and motivate you.
So this material really gives us this robust understanding, doesn't it? Confidence isn't some magical fixed trait you either have or don't.
No, it's a dynamic skill.
Yeah.
It's rooted in our psychology, our biology.
And it's built through conscious, deliberate action using these kinds of practical strategies.
And it impacts everything, right? It shows up in your work, your relationships, your health decisions. It's pretty foundational.
Absolutely foundational. So the message seems to be, the next time that drive starts to fade or that self-doubt starts whispering, remember, you have this toolkit.
Yeah, and you don't need to feel like you have to use every single tool all at once. That would be overwhelming.
Right. Just pick one. Pick one that feels doable, that resonates with you in that moment, and start there.
And often, Just taking that first small step, using just one of these tools, is enough to kind of start fanning those embers back into a flame.
Yeah.
Action often comes before the feeling of motivation returns.
That's such a key point. Don't wait until you feel motivated to start. Just start, however small, and the motivation often follows the action.
And as you consistently practice these things, apply these tools, you're not just building confidence, you're building that crucial resilience muscle too.
Yeah, the ability to bounce back.
Exactly. So here's a thought to leave you with. As you start to build this resilience muscle, strengthen this confidence skill, what seemingly impossible challenge might you now dare to face?
Ooh, that's a good one. Something to definitely ponder. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive today.